Gentlemen, gentlemen, we are alive now. We will start the webinar in 5 minutes.
Good morning, good afternoon. On behalf of ALADIR, la Asociación Latinoamericana de Desalación y Reuso, or Latin American Water Reuse and Desalination Association, I want to say thank you to all attendees. I believe we had over 1,000 and from 20 different countries, people registered for this webinar. Also, I want to say thank you to SWCC. I want to say thank you to DTRI to agree to be part of this webinar, a webinar that we believe is really important. So Aladir is a non-profit organization in Latin America that one of our main goals is basically to share knowledge, share experiences, share about,
Sorry, Juan,
yeah,
excuse me. No te vemos, please. We can see you.
I don't know, I see myself.
Yes.
Can you see me now?
No.
Mm, so I don't know. Let's keep going, Rahil.
Yes.
So basically, again, so I want to say we, Aladir, one of the main goals is to share knowledge and information. So that's why we approach DTRI to discuss how can we do this webinar that we can share your experience, what you are learning with our members, with our affiliates in Latin America. That we believe is really important to share all this information. Also, SWCC, one of the main vision is global leadership and excellency in water desalination industry. So I believe it's aligned on what we're doing right now. So a big question that we receive every time that we're talking about desalination is what else can we do with the brine? What is the next step? What are the options available with the brine? And I believe this webinar is going to give you an answer. It's going to give you an option that potentially we can apply in Latin America. We have big desalination plants in Mexico, in Chile. Now we're going to have in Brazil, in Argentina. So this could be an option that can be applied for all these plants and give an extra value, extra indication that we can do more with the desalination. Also, this webinar is going to talk some way around about circular economy. Is how can we make what is right now a no value into something with more value. So we think it's really, really important that we can show you what else is available. So this webinar is going to show you step by step what DTRI have developed, the technology, the step, the process to achieve this option, that converting the brine from used water into an economic value, that they will explain you how can you extract potentially minerals that can be used for something else. So with this, I want to invite all the attendees of this event to join us in our next webinar on next month with the EPA about contaminants. So thank you again. I pass the floor to Dr. Alamudi.
Thank you very much for a nice introduction. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. It is a great honor from me to be among the distinguished speakers from SWCC in this webinar. I hope this webinar it will be fruitful to all of us. As you know, for last decade, the people were talking about how we could harvesting the minerals and ions from the brine. But actually, we could make it for last 2 years, and we have succeeded for harvesting ions and minerals. And this is the webinar will show you a cases for what we did and what we are going to do also in the futures. As you know, the advanced manufacturing industry of the 21st century require ever greater amount of raw materials. At the same time, there are ever tighter environmental requirements for conventional mining. More sustainable sources are urgently required. One of the main potential source is the ocean. Ever since the scientists first analyzed the composition of the seawater and found it what was in it, and we have dreamed of obtaining valuable metals and minerals from the oceans. This dream has not yet become reality, but the expansion of the desalination and advance in resource recovery are brining. It is closer to reality every day. Seawater desalination brine is just concentrated seawater. Thus, any process for extraction minerals and metals from the sea will be more economical when applied to the desalination brine rather than seawater. Can you show the slide, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, now we'd like to go to do introduction for our. What is this? Next slide, please. Okay, next, please.
No,
Next, please. Okay, now we would like to introduce our DTRI, which is Desalination Technology and Research Institute, was established in 1987 as the main arm of research of saline water conversion corporation in order to focus reducing the cost and energy for the desalination plant, and also for brine mining in order to harvest the ions and minerals. Next, please. I would like to give SWCC numbers, SWCC Saline Water Conversion Corporations. We have here about 33 desalination plants distributing among the western coast and eastern coast for about 17 locations. The total production is about 5.9 meter cube per hour, and also we have about 36 pump stations. We are utilizing about a network system that links for about 9,600 kilometers. And also we are generating a power for about 7.26 gigawatts. And also we have about 10,000 employees, all of them from about 95% from Saudi candidates, and we have actually published over 20 or 250 published papers, and also we have 11 patents. 5 of these patents among ocean brining. Next, please. Yeah, this is the record genesis for when we got 5.6 million meter per day, and now we are producing about 5.9. Now we have experienced more than 40 years in engineering and in operation and administration experience in desalination industry, and also now we are a global and local partnership with the major knowledge and industry houses. Next, please. The main strategic initiative for SWCC, it is optimization of desalination plants operation in order, for example, to increase the production. We could actually in 2018 we could increase the production from 3.6 to about 5 million meter cube per day by several initiatives in the thermal and RO plants, and also we could also reduce the chemical consumption in RO plant and also thermal plant. The other initiative or strategic initiative is development of the new desalination technology and membrane. For example, we have patented several technologies like using nanofiltration ahead of the RO. We do it as by hydration. And also the last thing is development of the brine mining technology, what we are talking about it today. Next, please. Next, please. The DTRI initiatives in desalination. First, we are focusing to produce more fresh water from the same saline sources by increasing the high recovery from the thermal plant or RO plant. Second, advanced membrane technology and materials. Now we are working with our partners actually having a novel membrane that could lead higher production by about 10% when compared to the existing membrane available in the market, and also lower energy consumption by about 10%, and also higher rejection when compared to the other membrane manufacturer. The rejection now is ranged from 99 to 99.85, and with our new membrane we could reject about 99.93, and this is a uniqueness for our working with our partners in membrane technology. The third one is the commercial chemical free desalination. Now we are working for RO desalination plant, whether to minimize the chemical dosing in the RO plant or utilizing the brine mining to a circular economy in order to use this brine mining chemicals, like for example magnesium hydroxide, in order to replace ferric chloride for coagulation in the pretreated system. And also we are working on reduced energy and carbon footprint desalination. Now we are working with our expert to have energy recovery device in order to increase the efficiency from 98 or 99.3 to 99 from 95% to about 98.5 or to 99. That's what we are doing for energy recovery device. And also we are working for high pressure system, that all the high pressure system efficiency in the market range from 70 to 88 bar. Now we are working for high pressure pump efficiency for about more than 95% efficiency. The last one is the beneficial use of the brine. This is where I'm going to talk in this presentation from my side, from my colleagues. Next, please. Next, please. Okay. As you see, the blue blocks show us the seawaters. The seawaters actually contains 95.9.5. It is fresh waters, and only about 4.5 it is the salt. If we close look to the salt of 4.5, it will be mainly, as you see here, chloride 51%, sodium chloride about 35%, whereas the sulfate and others is the remaining. Here we found that the value actually for the minerals and the salt available in the brine or seawaters. As you see, all SWCC plants or all worldwide plants, they have a brine rejection for about 7% concentrated, that dumping back to the sea. And actually this is considered as a waste. Now we could convert this waste to become a treasures actually by increasing the concentration from 7% to about 25% with a purity of 99.7. This I'm talking about the sodium chloride, and my colleague, they will explain in details, but that's our target. We can make the brine waste to a valuable material. For example, as I mentioned, sodium chloride, 25% with a purity of 99.7. And also we are harvesting also bromine for gas and petrochemicals. For example, the sodium chloride here for our area, actually we have SABIC from the biggest petrochemical industry in the world. They need actually the salt for chloralkali. They used to use the landfill in order to extract this salt, but the landfill actually it is not sustainable as we have it now from the brine. Now it's become more sustainable when we are harvesting the sodium chloride from the brine. Next, please. Now this is the process shows us that for the feed coming from the pretreated seawater going to the NF membrane system. Here the tricky actually. Here we have two streams. The product stream for the NF and the reject stream for the NF. The NF product for the NF stream is mainly monovalent ion, sodium chloride mainly, and also the divalent stream is going to the reject, which is going to the other box. Okay, let us focus now about what's the advantage when you have the monovalent ion only going to the RO, that we could increase the recovery for the RO membrane from 45 to about 55%. We have now 10% more recovery. And also the brine, what we are getting from the RO membrane, it is mainly monovalent, sodium chloride, bromine, lithium, rubidium, and the other stuff. Whereas when we go to the NF now, the reject of the NF is mainly focusing the calcium ions and magnesium and strontium ions. Here my colleagues will talk about the calcium and magnesium harvesting, But I'm going to here to focus only in the rubidium for the monovalent ions. Please, next. For the rubidium, actually now we are working with the next, please. Sorry, next, please.
It's the previous.
Yes, okay. Now we are working with our with the project developed in collaboration with the Oak Ridge Lab in U.S. Department of Energy, in order to harvesting the rubidium and put it in the cold fusion power reactor in order to produce clean energy. And will allow us to produce energy equal to 1.5 or 2 times energy needed for operation the desalination plant. We believe that the extra energy that we can export it for the household, and we consider it from the as a revolution in energy sectors, because it is a green energy. We are using rubidium radioactive with no radioactive waste, and also will be one of the green energy and stable and sustainable energy resources, because it is from the brine, and we believe this is the future of the green energy, the bounty of the sea. And we are working now that with our partners. We hope that within maximum 2 years we believe that we could generate power from this rubidium extraction. Please, can you go to the previous one, please? To the previous one, not the next. No, the previous, please. The previous, yes. We are working actually all this type of harvesting ions with our partners, like, for example, Hydronautics, Fitco, FTS company, Russian company, and also we are working with the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology. All these our partners, and also BWS, Pacific Water Solution. We are working with our partners, with Oak Ridge Lab. We are working with them in order to make this succeeded. Actually, we have now succeeded for several projects, for several elements and metals, and our colleagues will explore what we are going to do, inshallah, in future. Next, please. Next, please. Next. Okay. Here, the further actual opportunities here we have the production of magnesium and potassium. Here we are talking about the cost. As you are aware here from this figures or bar chart, you can see the sodium chloride we can harvesting our revenue about more than $120 million per year, and also from magnesium chloride is with magnesium sulfate, which about actually $85 million. We are talking harvesting from the monovalent stream. The next will show you next please slide. The next slide will show you that the harvesting from the brine of the NF, that we can harvesting the magnesium ions, that we could the revenue from that will be more than $160 million, and also from the other stuff from the bromine about $10 million. Next, please. Now, this in general, the advantage actually for ocean brine mining, that we can play a major role in the human health by adding magnesium supplement in the product water, and my colleagues who will talk in details in that. But we have proven that medically with college medical college here, when we do a survey for diabetic people, we are give them different concentration of magnesium. Some of the group 100 patients, they have 0 magnesium. The other 100, they are taking 25 magnesium in the waters, and the other group, they have 50 magnesium concentration in the waters. What we found that the people who drink with 50 ppm of magnesium in the drinking waters, actually their enzymes or enzyme has been improved, and also the total sugar has been reduced dramatically. That is proven that the magnesium supplement is very good for the human health. And also we are now working with the chemical industry for chloralkali, as mentioned earlier, and my colleagues will talk about it. And also this will be good also for as used for fertilizer and test fruit, and also it can be used also for the medicine and the lot and health, and also for the food and packing. Next, please. Finally, I would like actually to invite all of you to join our specialty conferences actually is going to be held in Saudi Arabia. The first one is ocean brine mining, will be held in March 21st to 23rd in Le Meridian Hotel Al Khobar in Saudi Arabia. I wish to invite all of you to join this webinar. Actually, we have about 40 unique papers that do in ocean brine mining. It will be amazing. Actually, this is the first conference in the world specialized in ocean brine. I'm calling you to join us and work with us. And also, we have another innovation-driven desalination specialty conference will be held on May 30th to June 1st. Will be held in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. Also, we have about more than 60 papers for these innovations. We would like to see not all of you, because more than 1,000 we cannot accommodate all of you, but at least the people who is interest has in both conferences. You are most welcome in Saudi Arabia. I would like to give the floor to the next speakers, which is Dr. Nikola Vochkov. Please, Dr. Nikola.
Thank you. Thank you and good evening, everyone. My name is Nikolai Vochkov. I'm a senior expert with the Desalination Technology Research Institute. And in the next presentation, I'll talk about a particular full-scale project we're embarking on. It's very unique, and it's the largest desalination brine mining project in the world that we will see happening very, very soon here in Saudi Arabia. If you could load the presentation, please. Thank you. So the title of, if you could go to the next slide. Yeah, the title of the presentation is actually a project related to harvesting of sodium chloride and bromine for the chlor-alkali industry using brine from seawater desalination plants. The next, please. Next slide, please. Dual brine concentration technology is that Dr. Alamoudi mentioned is in the core principle of what we do. In order to produce adequate quality of sodium chloride for the chlor-alkali industry, we do have to remove calcium and magnesium from desalinated water. And from that perspective, we do apply nanofiltration as a first step of treatment of seawater to remove calcium and magnesium to reasonable levels. And then from that point on, we treat the water through a conventional seawater reverse osmosis system, which allows us to produce brine, which is mainly sodium and chloride, and a few other minerals that we remove through the process of desalination. This system that you see on the screen is actually patented, and it has been awarded a patent later last year. This system is in the core of the design of the full-scale plant that we plan to have here in Jubail. It is connected to a 1 million cubic meters new desalination plant, which will be located also in Jubail. This is one of the largest projects that we are under development here with Saline Water Conversion Corporation. So the brine from that facility will be used for the purposes of producing sodium chloride and bromine for the chlor-alkali industry. Next, please. Why do we focus on sodium and chloride? As you can see on this graph, it shows the various compounds that are in reasonably large amounts in the brine. And the line that is more or less in the first third of the screen shows that not all of them are cost effective. This graph shows that anything that's on the right side of the line is actually more cost effective today to derive from brine than from actually terrestrial treatment of sources of the same mineral. And the higher we go on that graph, as you can see, rubidium is a very high value substance. And it's one of the big prizes that Dr. Alamoudi said is not only high in value, but also high in potential, in solving the potential future of energy from using desalination. The two minerals that I'll focus on are on the shown with yellow circles, and those are the sodium chloride and bromine. Sodium chloride is an important substance here, and it's used in chemical industry worldwide by the chlor-alkali industry to produce sodium hypochlorite and sodium hydroxide. Bromine is a very important substance for any place where you have oil industry. It is injected in every single oil well as a fire retardant. So it is widely used in the Middle East and many other places worldwide where oil exploration is achieved. Next slide, please. So why do we start with, where do we start with ocean brine mining? Where do we start from? And the focus, as I mentioned, of our first project is sodium chloride and brine, from brine, and also bromine from brine. And why do we pick those? First, sodium chloride is the main mineral in brine. It's 86% of the brine is technically sodium chloride, so it is the most abundant in content in terms of brine. And the technology that we developed allows us to produce brine at very high purity, over 96%. We could go all the way to even 99.6% for salt that can be used for pharmaceutical and other purposes. But for the focuses of the chlor-alkali industry, we can go 96 and higher. And there is a very large market of this sodium chloride, of high purity sodium chloride. It's currently around 300 million dry tons per year worldwide. In the Middle East, as well as China, US, Germany, those are places where this industry is very abundant. But we do see chlor-alkali industry in practically every large industrialized country. So it is a huge market. What is interesting is the price of sodium chloride nowadays is $65 to $75 per dry ton, the market price, while through the technology we developed, we can actually achieve production of sodium chloride at this high purity at about $35 to $45 per dry ton. So very competitive production price. And so that's why we focused on this large market and high quality and value. Bromine, as I mentioned, is a smaller but very attractive market. Currently, the cost of bromine, market price of bromine, is about $3,400 to $4,000 per dry ton. And based on our technology, we could produce it for about $800 to $1,000 per dry ton. So as you can see, the profit margins in bromine are certainly even more interesting than those in sodium chloride. But in both cases, they are very attractive opportunities from a business perspective to extract substances that are highly valuable for the industry. Next slide, please. Just a brief summary of the brine concentration economics. Why is it economically interesting to focus on this project? The technology that we have allows us from 100,000 cubic meters a day desalination plant to produce 1 to 1.2 million dry tons per year of high purity sodium chloride. If we look at how much the cost of water would be generated by this plant, assuming 60 cents per cubic meter, which is nowadays for this size projects a widely observed price, the profit or the revenue, I should say, from desalinated water is about $22 million per year. If we look at the brine that is generated by the same plant at $65 per dry ton, the low end of the sales profit than the cost of water, the sales cost of water. What that slide really shows is that if we, with this project, we could basically make the most expensive water in the world, desalinated water, to cost nothing. We can fully subsidize it by the sales of brine from the same exact size project. That's why we do see brine concentration and brine mining a new perspective, new frontier for desalination. Ability to make the most expensive water in the world into the lowest cost water in the world. Next, please. This is actually a schematic that shows our desalination plant and how it works, this 1 million cubic meters a day desalination plant, and how it works in conjunction with the brine concentration and harvesting project. As you can see on the desalination plant site, which is the upper side of the figure, it's a 1 million cubic meters a day facility, which will require about 168,200 cubic meters a day of this water would be associated with producing enough brine to produce 2 million tons of salt per year, dry tons of salt per year. Why we established 2 million? That is because our recent clients that are currently using other sources of brine are running out of sources of natural sources. Those natural sources are actually surface mines here in Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. There are many surface mines for sodium chloride which are being scraped and used, but they're towards the end of their useful life. And most of the mines have 5 to 8 to 10 years left. So this source would replace the conventional source of sodium chloride, being surface mining. So 2 million is a demand that is readily available here nearby where we are located in Jubail, where the desalination plant will be located. The total demand for the country is much bigger than that, about 5-6 times bigger. But this particular project would be located close to where some of the main uses are. When you look at the system, the seawater reverse osmosis, this system contains nanofiltration. So the water is collected from an open ocean intake, goes through dual media filtration, and then from there cartridge filtration, nanofiltration, and then the water from the nanofiltration facility, which is relatively low salinity, 31, 34,000, goes through seawater reverse osmosis system, very conventional designs. Seawater reverse osmosis system will have higher recovery because of the pre-treated NF pre-treated water. And the brine generated from that system, the seawater reverse osmosis system, will be higher in sodium and chloride and lower in calcium and magnesium. That brine is harvested and it goes into a multi-stage brine concentration system. You could see to the right side of the picture. The brine concentration system has the purpose to take the 70,000 cubic milligrams per liter brine and concentrate it to about 232,000 milligrams per liter. This is done by osmotically assisted reverse osmosis, a 3-stage system. And that system operates at low pressures, as high as the pressure of reverse osmosis. And it's very simplified compared to many other systems available on the market. So it allows us to very energetically, cost effectively to produce brine at 230,000 milligrams per liter. That brine at that concentration goes into crystallizer because most of our clients prefer to, rather than carrying brine with water in it, to actually crystallize and use it as crystal brine. So that's what happens with how we produce the actual brine in a crystal form. We'll have it also in the liquid form. We do have one user that is very close to us, and the brine will be pumped to them directly by pump station. What else comes out of the crystallizer, which is in the waste, or we call it purge from the crystallizers, is actually a very rich in bromine stream that normally would be a waste, and that's what happens in zero liquid discharge systems. It's wasted. In our case, it's actually a very valuable resource of bromine. We're using a technology that allows us to extract the bromides from this liquid and turn it into bromine, which, as I mentioned, is highly valuable commercial product for the desalination industry. As you could see, as a final product of this plant, we will have 2 million tons per year of high purity salt that can be used, sodium chloride that can be used for the chlor-alkali industry, and about 3,000 to 4,000 tons of bromine per year that will be used for the oil industry. Next slide, please. Yeah, this shows a detail of what happens with the brine. A percentage of the water that is of the concentrated brine in the brine concentration system is returned back to the feed of the seawater RO system, as you may see on this graph, and we reprocess it to minimize energy and to maximize the benefit of that brine. What is the main difference between brine concentration membranes and seawater reverse osmosis membranes is brine concentration membranes are designed to concentrate brine, and the permeate they produce is actually pretty close to the salinity of seawater, not the drinking water. So that's a big difference. And that permeate is almost 99.6% pure sodium chloride. Recycling that stream actually and recovering it is very valuable in reducing the overall energy and also the overall productivity of this, and increasing the overall productivity of the system. Once we do that, the brine that comes from the reverse osmosis system will go into a storage tank, and from there into the brine concentration. Next slide, please. This is the dry crystalline brine specifications. Those specifications are determined by the chlor-alkali industry. You could see what spec we're meeting. We could be even more stringent as far as quality, but this is a quality that serves basically any chlor-alkali industry use of this brine, and also medicinal and other pharmaceutical and other uses. Other industries also can use it just to see what the product looks like. The next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, just a brief overview of the plant components of our sodium chloride and bromine plant. We have a membrane brine concentration plant. It is provided by a company called FTS. This is a US company headquartered in Oregon. We have worked closely with them to design the system and fit it to the purposes of what we have. As you may have noticed, we're feeding the crystallizer. The next step is the crystallizer. We're feeding the crystallizer at 230,000 milligrams per liter, not more. And the reason why is not because we cannot produce more. We actually, FTS system, we were able to produce 280,000 milligrams per liter. This was what we were able to easily produce with that system. So we could bring the salinity of the brine as high as 280,000. But what we found is about 230,000, the energy needed for brine concentration by membranes is actually, at that point, it is above that salinity. It's actually more cost effective to do it by thermal evaporation. So that's why we're only taking it to 230, and from there we're crystallizing the brine. The bromine plant is basically provided by industrial supplier. It is a fairly available, readily available commercial facility. And besides the bromine and the salt crystallizer, we do have interim feed and concentrated brine storage tanks and pump stations, clarifiers for magnesium removal. Why we do have those clarifiers is because the brine tends to change in quality because of magnesium and seawater changes in quality as well. And we use it to remove extra magnesium in the summer when the rejection of the membranes is not as high. And then we store the brine in crystal in liquid form. So next slide, please. Yeah, this is the membrane brine concentration system, just a general schematic. I'm not going to go into detail. You're very welcome to come to one day seminar that we have, a workshop that we have at our brine concentration conference. For one day, we'll be talking in excruciating detail of the chemistry, the technology, and the details. But this is basically a three-stage system where we treat the brine and to concentrate it. And from stage to stage, we increase the salinity. If we're feeding 70,000, we get to about 150 to 180,000, and from there to 230,000. And with the third stage, we could get to 280,000 milligrams per liter. So the permeate from each of those brine concentration stages is recycled to the front, while the permeate from the first stage is recycled to the feed to the seawater reverse osmosis system. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yes, the crystallizer system, I wanted to mention that particular system. We selected it. It's different system from the ones that is being used in zero liquid discharge systems. And that's because we wanted to create high quality dry crystals that are suitable for the chlor-alkali industry. We are using at this point and tested specific SWCC technology, which allows us to meet all our targets and also to produce bromine of high quality that we could, bromide of high quality that we could extract bromine from and convert it to bromine for benefits of the bromine industry. The crystal salt that we produce is 99.6% purity of sodium chloride, 6,000 tons per day. So this is 2 million tons per year. And we do generate about 30,000 mLD of condensate, which has low salinity. It can be reused. And then in addition to that, we create about 3,780 cubic meters of perch. That is with high concentration of bromide. Then we go through bromination process to turn into bromine, which is then the commercial product used in oil industry. And the crystallizer system has 3 independent units with a pre-evaporator, pre-concentrating the brine from 230,000 to all the way to 330, 350. And from there, the crystallization into fine size 0.2% moisture crystals. We do have also dewatering component of the crystallization system and drying component, fluidized bed dryer, that are part of the crystallization system. And we run the crystallizers using membrane and mechanical vapor compression. And we also have salt storage and salt packing system as part of the project. Next stage, please. Next slide. This is the site. The site is on the bottom side. The big rectangle that you see in the center of this picture is actually the site for the 1 million cubic meters a day seawater desalination plant. And just under it, going south, is where the desalination plant, the brine concentration plant would be. Next picture, please. Next slide. The next steps of this project are, we've completed the front-end engineering design of the project, and we are currently securing the funding of the project. We expect that to be completed within the next 2 months. And then we have a project workshop that I mentioned in our brine mining conference, and that's on March 21st. You're welcome to attend. And it is included in the price of the conference, which is very reasonable. And then from that point on, we will get into preparation of requests for proposals and issuing proposals summer, fall this year, and have a turnkey contractor design and build the facility to great detail. And then a construction period of about 36 months with expectation by mid-2025 to have this 2 million ton per year plant in operation. This will be the largest facility in the world that makes this type of brine. Next slide, please. With that, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and to remind again that Ocean Brine Mining Workshop is on the 21st of March. And if you're interested in learning more details, technical details, we have a one-day workshop associated with that. So with that in mind, I'd like to invite you to visit us here in Jubail, and also you'll be able to see the actual pilot system that is being used to verify the performance of the full-scale plant. With that, thank you very much for your attention, and we will continue with the next speaker. Yeah, our next speaker. Can you hear us, Dr. Chris?
Yes, I can hear you, Nikolai.
Yes.
See if the slides will come up.
With your presentation, yes. Dr. Chris Fellows is also with DTRI here, senior expert with DTRI, and he'll talk about brine mining of other metals and minerals. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Nikolai. Yeah, my name is Dr. Christopher Fellows. My background is in chemistry, actually in polymer chemistry, but I have become involved in every facet of the chemistry of brines, and it is my great pleasure today to talk to you about where we go next. So we've outlined what we're on the threshold of bringing into reality. What are the next steps? And I'd like to start with two of my favorite quotes. This first one is very particular for brine mining. 10 years ago, commercial extraction of any of the elements present in the ocean was as impossible as alchemy. Today, it's an accomplished fact. And I feel safe in predicting that within the next decade, we will be able to recover gold, silver, radium, and all the other untold wealth from the sea. Now that we've made one dream a reality, it is only a matter of further technical development and refinement of process before we make the sea loosen its hold on a fortune so fabulous that it staggers the imagination. And you can already see the date down the bottom there. So that's 1934. So in a way, this is true, but the further technical development and refinement of process required is significantly more significant than in this prediction. So this is applicable to brine mining. This other quote is applicable to absolutely everything. This is from Lord Kelvin. I often say that when you can measure what you are speaking about and express it in numbers, you know something about it. But when you cannot measure it, you cannot express it in numbers, your knowledge is of a meager and unsatisfactory kind. It may be the beginning of knowledge, but you have scarcely advanced to the stage of science, whatever the matter may be. So let's think quantitatively about making a fabulous fortune out of brine. So Engineer Vuchkov has already shown you a very similar figure to this. This is the one that appears in our recent review paper, should be coming out any time now, where we've taken the most recent values for prices and put in lines from a number of different review papers to sort of give you a consensus picture. Now, I find it most useful sometimes to multiply these two axes together. So those are both log axes, but if we multiply them together, we get the value that we could obtain if these products just magically fell out of the ocean into our hands and we could sell them. And when we do that exercise, we end up with this graph here. So this is just rearranging the atoms that are in seawater. You can see that the products of the chlor-alkali industry are the most valuable things that we can get out of there, sodium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid. And the other big one there is magnesium metal. And this isn't even using the very high prices that I'm going to show you in a minute. So magnesium is a significant species. These things here all require significant chemical, physical treatment of the products that come out of the seawater directly. So let's have a look at a similar graph looking at things that can basically just fall out of the seawater with relatively simple treatment, so that the products of our initial treatment to come out of the seawater. So here, again, you see sodium chloride, very prominent, bromine, very prominent. And I'm going to talk to you about how we can go about extracting some of the other value here. So we see we also have the magnesium salts, very
Sorry,
prominent.
Mr. Fellow. Sorry.
Yes.
I can see your presentation. Please, you can try share again. Sorry.
Okay, I can see it in its shared space here. The options are remove from stream or remove from studio. Share slides. All right, no one can see the presentation. That's terrible. You have the backup there. I do not know why it is not visible to you. Removing it and trying again. Is it visible now?
Oh, we can see the first slide.
Okay, good. Second slide.
I can see it on my end. Can you please confirm that we can see it? Rajil?
Okay. Someone has the dogs out. Yeah, I can see my third slide.
No, we can see it. Martin, please, can you share? One moment, Mr. Fellow.
ما في مشكلة.
Martin is now sharing the slides. Okay, we can go ahead.
You can go ahead, Mr. Fellow.
All right. So can you see the slide with the picture of Thomas Midgley? Or do you see the graph?
We see the graph.
All right. So this is the graph, very similar to the one that Engineer Vuchkov showed you, with the price on the x-axis, so with the concentration on the x-axis and the price on the y-axis. And I find it valuable sometimes to take these two things and multiply them together. So on the next slide, we see what happens when we multiply them together. Martin, if you can move it forward. Yes, so here, as I said, we have the sodium hydroxide and the hydrochloric acid, products of the chloralkali process. And the other big one there is magnesium. These are things where we require chemical, physical effort to make these. But if we look at the compounds that fall out more readily on the next slide, we also have the magnesium salts very prominent here, as well as the sodium chloride and the bromine. And this is based on a total dissolved solids of 45,000 parts per million, which is what we have in the Arabian Gulf, significantly higher than the seawater that you find in most other parts of the world. So magnesium, on the next slide, has attracted a lot of attention recently because we've had a very significant spike in price caused by power disruptions in China. So lots of people have their eyes open looking for new sources of magnesium. On the next slide, you can see some of the important things that are made from magnesium. So makes cars much lighter, very useful for a lot of our consumer electronics, and for military hardware. Of course, you want light metal for those planes. So our integrated brine mining facility, on the next slide, Engineer Vuchkov has talked about how we're going to produce sodium chloride and bromine from this, but we also have another stream that we haven't done anything at all with yet, which is that divalent rich stream, the product, the reject from the nanofiltration membranes. Now, this is a potential source for magnesium metal and for these valuable magnesium salts. So historically, magnesium has been produced from the sea. Next slide, please. So going back again to Thomas Midgley, in the 1940s, magnesium was produced from the sea directly from seawater by precipitating out magnesium hydroxide, converting this chemically to magnesium chloride, and then electrolyzing the magnesium chloride to give magnesium and chlorine. There is a similar process which was also applied in many parts of the world throughout the 20th century. But since the late 1990s, on the next slide, these processes of getting seawater or getting magnesium from seawater have been almost entirely replaced by a much more polluting and energy intensive process that makes magnesium from terrestrial sources. So the question is, how can we match the low energy, the low cost of these processes used to produce magnesium from the land? So we don't want to add large amounts of reagents, as in these historical processes, to precipitate magnesium hydroxide. We don't want to put in large amounts of energy if we can possibly help it. So it is possible that the carbothermic processes, as you can see at the bottom right, can be competitive to make metallic magnesium from magnesium hydroxide if we can source it from this much richer source. And it's also possible that we can economically produce magnesium metal from the magnesium chloride brine that is potentially produced from the nanofiltration stream. So this is our low chemical impact design that we're working on at the moment for extracting as much value as possible from the nanofiltration reject. And the magnesium metal, if we have an interested partner, is obviously an ideal product there. Other products for which there is a significant market are the magnesium sulfate salts. So the various forms that are shown there are quite valuable fertilizers. And in the next presentation, Dr. Eam will be telling you about a slightly different take on magnesium sulfate that we're actually implementing at the moment. So this plan maximizes magnesium chloride output. The next slide is a slightly different proposal for maximizing production of magnesium hydroxide for production of carbothermic magnesium. And we're currently talking with various people to identify the best path forward to produce magnesium. So I have a little bit of time, despite the technical difficulties, to tell you about some of the other things that were significant on that graph. And the first one is potassium salts. So potassium is also valuable as a fertilizer. Currently in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we have no internal sources of potassium fertilizer. It's all imported from Jordan. And the output of our 2 million tons per annum sodium chloride plant will very neatly match the demand for potassium fertilizer in the kingdom. And it could be reacted with the magnesium sulfate that's produced to produce potassium sulfate, which is a higher value fertilizer than potassium chloride. Dr. Alamoudi spoke briefly about rubidium. So this is the actual technology that will use rubidium is still very much hidden away in the dark labs of the U.S. Department of Energy. But if these do become commercial or even have significant use in government applications in the kingdom, then this future market for the rubidium 87 isotope will be very good for us. This can be extracted from the purge. So I should have said about the potassium chloride, once we take the bromine out of that concentrated purge that's left over, it's a very good source for potassium chloride. What's left over after that is quite significantly enriched in rubidium. And there was a question I saw in the chat about lithium. So I've got on the next slide, this highly concentrated purge from which the potassium and the sodium, everything else has been taken out, is also rich enough in lithium to be a good source. But the problem is that there's not very much of it. So out of our 2 million tons per annum plant of sodium chloride, we would produce about 50 tons per annum, not 50,000, but 50 tons of lithium carbonate, which is what lithium production is measured in. And this can be compared to 160,000 tons per annum of lithium carbonate from the world's largest hard rock lithium mine. And I believe in Chile, they've recently issued 5 concessions for 80,000 tons per annum lithium carbonate from the Salar brine. So a desalination plant can produce lithium, but it's not really worth it given the very small amounts of material that are present. So the next slide shows the cost of producing lithium. So from the purge, it's quite reasonable compared to facilities that are available, but the amounts are just very small. And producing it directly from desalination brine, our studies show that it's not really going to be viable. So to summarize, we have an exciting future in front of us on the final slide. And we're taking the realizable parts of Thomas Midgley's vision. We're quantifying them and finding the parts that are going to be cost effective for us. The most important thing is separation. Any separation process requires energy and money, and having the nanofiltration at the front end gets us a lot of separation bang for a small energy buck. And having everything integrated makes things economic that otherwise would not be. So if we didn't have a market for the sodium chloride, it wouldn't be practicable to look into all of these other products. The sodium chloride is carrying the burden of everything else. And finally, for a product like magnesium and products like rubidium, strategic considerations are important. It's likely that we will have a situation where it might not look perfectly competitive on a pure economic basis, but considering that more than 90% of the world's magnesium and now the world's only operating rubidium mine are controlled by China, I think there's an interest in getting those commodities from the sea, which touches nearly every country in the world. Thank you very much. And I'm very pleased to be able to hand over to my colleague, Dr. Im, for the final speech in our series. Thank you.
Dr. Im, we cannot hear you.
All right. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Im from SWCC DTRI. I'm also a senior expert. I'm focusing on the membrane systems for brine concentration and mining. Today, my presentation is about full-scale facility for remineralization of desalinated water with magnesium. Okay, already Dr. Hamudi explained this one. Actually, after the sodium chloride, the next abundant minerals in the seawater is magnesium sulfate and also calcium. Actually, our role in SWCC DTRI is bringing the idea from the paper into the reality. And I would like to introduce the very exciting project ongoing. Can you see my screen or? Okay.
Yes, we can see your screen, your presentation.
Next slide, please. Okay. As explained before, actually, why magnesium? We found that during the last more than 20 years in the medical society, there has been a lot of study on the impact of magnesium dissolved in the drinking water on the human health. And we found that the magnesium content in the drinking water is very essential. It is very important for the human health, especially on two aspects. One is related to your healthy heart muscle, and another one for combating diabetics. So depending on the researchers, they found that the minimum magnesium content in the drinking water, for some aspects 10 ppm, or some other cases 20 ppm are essential. So next slide, please. So how we can extract magnesium? Fortunately, in seawater, already we show that the magnesium is number 4 abundant mineral available in the seawater. So when we have a seawater desalination plant, then why don't we extract required magnesium from the seawater? In the Middle East, usually there is 1,500 magnesium in ppm in seawater, and we need only 25 ppm magnesium in our drinking water. So we considered to use nanofiltration in this application. Nanofiltration is very special. Sodium chloride, such monovalent ions are mostly passed through the membrane, while calcium and magnesium, those divalent ions, while very important for our health, will be rejected by NF membrane. Unfortunately, the NF membrane, how it behaves is on the lower side of the diagram here. So although we have a certain ideal NF membrane which has zero rejection of sodium chloride, zero rejection means sodium chloride will move with water molecules. So in the NF reject, where we want to harvest calcium and magnesium in a very highly concentrated manner, still we have sodium chloride remaining. So how can we reduce the sodium chloride in the NF reject so that we don't want to put sodium chloride in our drinking water? We want to inject only calcium and magnesium. Next slide, please. So our very simple idea is that in here on the left diagram, the number 100 represents any saline water source which has magnesium, for example, seawater here. And after the process stage of the NF membrane, the reject has concentrated magnesium, but unfortunately with sodium chloride. Here we introduce this 101 line, the second line from the left. This is less saline water, say simply product water. So with this fresh water, we have dilution stage. So after the dilution stage, we can consider second NF stage. Then the most of sodium chloride monovalent ions will pass through the membrane, while most of the sodium, calcium and magnesium divalent ions will be retained in its second stage NF retentate. And when we repeat this process, in here, for example, 4 stages, then in the end, on the last going down arrows, we have very highly concentrated calcium and magnesium while minimizing the content of sodium chloride. Next slide, please. So we we wanted to demonstrate our idea into the real commercial plant, and we developed our project over the last 2 years, and we are implementing this new NF system in the Schreiber phase per plant. And in this diagram, the upper part is the existing Schreiber phase per desalination plant, where we are producing 400,000 cubic meter per day, suitable for 1.3 million population drinking water. And in here, we newly added this NF magnesium system on the lower part of this diagram. And here we are taking the seawater after the cartridge filter. Seawater is the source of magnesium, and we use another stream here, the sky blue color, after the post-treatment system for the interstage dilution stream. Then most of the NF permeate, here the overall recovery is about 94.5%. Then NF permeate is around 13,000 ppm, will be sent back to the DMF filtered water tank, while the final multi-stage NF reject, which is highly concentrated magnesium stream, will be sent to our storage system, so that we can secure magnesium more than minimum 15 ppm. This is our design condition. Next slide, please. So we had to carefully choose the type of NF membrane. In DTRI, we have the NF membrane's performance data in terms of each individual ion rejections for more than 20 different NF membranes. And as you can see here, NF membrane could be very tight, which is group A. This is more close to the BWRO membrane, which shows very high rejection. And while there are very loose membrane, NF membrane in group C, and we try to find out something between group B and C, so that our final NF membrane shows less than 20% of sodium and chloride rejection, while keeping the high enough magnesium rejection around 80%. Next slide, please. Next, yes. Then what will happen in our drinking water? The left-hand column shows the Schreiber phase per product water design condition. Usually in the seawater desalination, the post-treatment, the adding hardness is by calcium carbonate. So here you can see we have calcium carbonate, calcium and bicarbonate, but unfortunately from the desalination plant, which use whatever the RO or thermal processes, magnesium is usually almost 0 ppm. And in the column in the middle, you can see the magnesium enriched brine from our multi-stage NF system. Here we can concentrate magnesium more than 7,000 ppm, while you can see here sodium and chloride are minimized. And after mixing this NF reject with our product water, our target design at 25 degrees Celsius was to secure the magnesium 21 ppm here. And at the higher temperature and after some certain membrane age, this could be dropped to 17 ppm. But still, this is good for health, because our target was magnesium 15 ppm. Next slide, please. Then the impact on the Schreiber phase per water production. What we found is in the original design of Schreiber phase per plant, as can be seen here as a reference, the feed TDS to the seawater RO system was 42,800 ppm. But when we mix with our NF permeate, which is 13,000 ppm, then seawater RO permeate TDS drops to 42,200 ppm, 600 ppm lower. Then we can actually increase the seawater RO recovery from 42% into 42.8% with the similar feed pressure of the high pressure pump to the seawater RO. So in this way, we can produce 0.8% more recovery, and this additional water production is actually used for our NF multi-stage interstage dilution water, so that in our NF system, although we use the dilution water, but there is no loss in the final product water. Next slide, please. And this is the overall scope of supply for our NF system. The overall size of our NF system is less than 50 meter by 50 meter. and we use filtered seawater as a source of magnesium, and we use product water as a source of interstage dilution, and most of the flow rate is sent back to the DMF filtered water tank. And the energy consumption in our system is around 1 to 1.5 megawatt, which is less than 2% of the entire Schreiber phase 4 seawater RO plant. So in here, the overall scope in our NF system is comparing to the Schreiber phase 4 seawater RO plant. It is between 2% to 5% in terms of energy consumption or flow rate or the required footprint. So we can say that the possible increase of the product water cost for our drinking water will be around 3%, 4% order. And with this 3 to 4% additional cost, we can have magnesium in our drinking water. Next slide, please. This is the site view of the Schreiber phase 4 RO plant. Actually, at the top corner, there is a small area which is for the NF system. This is Schreiber phase 4 seawater RO plant. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is the NF plant layout. This is around 43 meter by 43 meter, and we designed our NF into 2 streams. Each stream contains 4 stages, but these are actually the mini NF skis. So all those 8 NF skis, the total number of pressure vessel is only 210, so which is similar to just one big seawater RO vessel. So this is our overall diagram. And next slide, please. Yeah. After the 2 years of the project development, last year, May, we could award the project to the EPC contractor. And from July last year, just 7 months ago, we could start the construction of our NF plant. And on the right, you can see the picture of last month, actually, January. Already, it is almost completed. In February, right now, we are doing the required test and the commissioning works. And we believe that next month, from March, we can enter into the reliability test. Then we will be able to supply the magnesium, concentrated magnesium into the Schreiber phase 4 plant. Then we will have magnesium 17 to 21 ppm in our final product water of Schreiber phase 4, 400,000 cubic meter per day. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the conclusion. SWC will produce magnesium 17 to 21 ppm water from next month. And this type of plant will be the first time in the world. And we used our multi-stage NF system design. This will be one good example of how to utilize magnesium from the seawater in a good purpose. Thank you very much. This is the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much. We will now proceed to the round of questions. You can type your questions in the comments of YouTube and LinkedIn. But before, we will watch a video, which is courtesy of the IDA. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Hi, hello everyone. I am Zashane Qureshi, and I'm really happy to be here on behalf of Global Water Intelligence. And I'm here to ask some of the speakers some questions. So firstly, thank you to all of the speakers. We've heard so many fascinating ideas on what I think is just a really interesting topic. I wanted to begin by talking a bit about the feasibility of combining desalination with brine mining technologies. It seems that this may be something that's easiest to achieve when we're working with a blank slate and, when we can create a new system from scratch. But if you do have a brownfield site with an existing desalination plant, I'm wondering how much harder that makes things. So maybe if we go to Dr. Eam about this, because my understanding is that the Schreiber plant is already existing. What do you think the challenges are here with doing this on a brownfield site, in your opinion, and how would you suggest we resolve them?
Yeah. In case of my application, which is a magnesium plant, as I explained, this is actually small addition to the existing plant. So, and as you know, health is very important. The adding magnesium can support the health issues, and actually the magnesium in the product water is also good for agriculture perspective. So if you see the value, then why don't we add? This will be around 3 to 4% of your desalination plant capital cost. So why don't we add those 2 to 3% addition to produce your water with magnesium containing around 20 ppm? So in case of Schreiber phase 4, that is actually that is existing plant, but it's newly constructed. The service started just almost 2 years ago. But I believe once, even from SWCC point of view, once we successfully demonstrate this first project in Schreiber phase 4, then we will repeat the same project to the all other brownfield and the new greenfield projects.
Right. Thank you for that. Sorry.
I would like to add one thing here, one point. Yes. It's very important. Okay, the capex for this project is about $20 million, whereas in Saudi Arabia, for our population, from percentage of view, that 25% from our population, they are suffering from diabetics, and we believe that if we could supplement the water quality by magnesium, which has been now proven medically that it will reduce or it will increase the immunity of our system in order to overcome the diabetics, or in order to increase the insulin production and reduce the sugar in our blood. That's very valuable. Actually, it is not comparison even, because our government spent billions of dollars for treating this type of people. But when we succeeded to invest only 2%, which is about $20 million for all six plants, it would not be more than $100 million that we could add a valuable medicine in the water treatment, which is magnesium, which will increase their insulin production and reduce their suffer from the diabetes. There is no comparison actually from the view. That I would like to highlight it here.
Yeah, definitely. Magnesium seems like a really important thing for us to produce. Definitely. I want to actually
for information, you have to know that the magnesium play in our body play for more than 300 enzymes in our body. Okay, it is not only good for sugar. No, it's good for the heart, our heart, to strengthen our hearts, our body, everything, because it's introduced in 300 enzymes.
Yeah, definitely. Perhaps I could move on to maybe talk a bit more about things like sodium chloride, for example. I'm quite interested to hear about how the methods you suggested here compare to, existing methods, for example, of producing the same materials. So, what engineer Nikolai Bochkov suggested it seems to me that maybe the greenhouse gas impact of producing sodium chloride in this way, maybe that's worse than it would be if you were, say, using a salt dome. So is that true? And if so, sort of, how would you justify doing it more generally?
Yes, as far as the cost and energy needed to produce the high purity sodium chloride, we currently, as I mentioned, we can produce it with the technologies that we explained at about $35 to $40 per dry ton. The current price of the same product on the market is $65 to $75 per ton. And the way that salt comes on the market at the purity that we're talking about, it's 99.6% purity versus sodium chloride that you just get directly from as a mixed salt. For example, from a drying pond, is that the quality of this material is uniquely applicable to many different things. And currently, the source of the product of sodium chloride for the same industry, chlor-alkali industry, is actually surface mining. When you look at the carbon footprint of surface mining, it is significantly higher than the carbon footprint of our application. Just to give you a sense of energy demand. As most of us know, currently desalination plants use in this region at high salinity waters use between about 2.9 to 3.2 kilowatt hours per cubic meter. The process that we developed actually uses energy of approximately 6.8 to 7.2 kilowatt hours per cubic meter. And that compares to, for example, thermal evaporation to achieve the same salinities of 230,000 of $18 per cubic meter. So we're talking about 3 times lower energy demand. So the energy efficiency of this process is very high. And it is comparable to the energy when you look at the carbon footprint overall of the current mining processes for sodium chloride, especially using it in Saudi Arabia, where we use surface mines, and in deep mines is also relatively intensive as well. The carbon footprint is comparable, but the cost of energy, the beauty of the technology which we're using is it has incredibly low energy demand. If we add the extra recovery that we get because of the NF system upstream of the RO, that overall energy per cubic meter of brine and water goes from about 7.268 to 7.2 goes down to below 5 kilowatt hours. So that it becomes very interesting as far as energy demand for the benefit we get. So overall, it is more from an environmental perspective, it's more attractive. And as Dr. Alamoudi said, with rubidium reactors being used to produce energy for desalination plants or any other source of energy, practically will become a carbon footprint negative industry rather than being relatively high carbon footprint industry at the moment.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. So it does seem that overall this does seem to be a really good option for the environment on many different fronts. That's really interesting.
Yeah. If I could add just something briefly that kind of ties your 2 questions together, if I may.
Sure.
So you're correct that it would have a smaller impact if we use solar evaporation rather than a thermal crystallizer. I mean, that would have a lower carbon footprint. But on the other hand, the land area required that would not be practicable on a brownfield site. So it's a kind of a trade-off between those 2 things.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. Thank you for that. I actually wanted to maybe talk a little bit more about the various different options that we have in terms of materials to recover. I know, Dr. Fellows, that you talked a bit about, the difficulties with something like lithium. Some of these higher value materials, ultimately, though they have great potential and great value, they're often harder to extract and more complex, more costly. I was wondering if there is a way that we can make the economics work for materials like this. And do you think that it would ever make economic sense to extract high value materials, really high value materials like lithium, on its own, or would it be kind of easier or more feasible if we'd kind of already dealt with all the other materials in the brine, the sodium and the chlorine and everything? Could that open up a route to higher value materials being recovered?
Yeah, so our vision at the moment is for an integrated plant where we take out the large value products end up with a waste stream, which is a valuable stream for the next step. So we end up with a volume of material of brine that is suitable for a lot of those high value products. The downside there, which I did try to highlight, is that amount is very small, even for a plant producing 2 million tons per annum of sodium chloride. So is there potential in the long run? I guess one thing I can see is if we store that final material until we have a significant lake of it, and then it makes sense to process it and get an economic lot of material at the end. But in terms of the amount of material we're processing, even though the brine volumes are huge, because the concentration of these things is so small in the seawater, there are some elements that I think are just we're never going to be able to do them.
Yeah.
Unless the terrestrial markets and costs for production of those materials go up, which is also a possibility because we're working with finite amounts, while the ocean is a huge source of it. And many minerals now are several times larger content overall in the earth, in the oceans, than they are now in terrestrial mines, at least known sources. So overall, things will change. Economics will change for other metals. But the ones that we mentioned, they're not only relatively easy grasp as far as investment costs to retrieve them and take them from the brine, but also they are abundant. They're large quantities, so it makes sense to extract them. Lithium is an interesting substance. It's just that not as much available. When you look at the production costs of lithium, however, we technologists today actually would be pretty close to other sources. So if it's a matter of independence of your country and sensitivity to lithium, it still may be valuable to pursue it. It becomes a factor of benefit, overall benefit, and lack of the material.
Yeah. For our country, for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it's worth pointing out that we have oil field brines, which are also a waste material that have lithium at a significantly higher concentration than seawater. So we have another waste material that is a good source for pursuing for independence in lithium.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting to hear all of that. I think that we might move on to a wider Q&A, but I do have a few more questions I'd like to ask if there is time at the end to do that. But thank you for answering my questions so far.
Thank you very much, Sursani and the GWI for these interesting questions. We will get back at you, but we will go with some questions from the audience first. You will be able to read them on the screen, and I will also read them for you. So, does the nanofiltration membrane reduce the required pressure for RO membrane operation? If so, what is the new required pressure for RO membrane?
Actually, yeah, after with the NF membrane, for example, the TDS could be reduced by 20%. Then obviously, because of this osmotic pressure reduced, the required pressure will be reduced by 5 to 10% for the osmotic pressure part, while we need the same net driving pressure part. But instead of that, what DTRI prefers, as per our experience, is to increase the overall recovery. So as Dr. Amoudi explained before, instead of having 45% recovery, in the 40 to 45% recovery here in the Middle East, with NF membrane, we can increase the recovery higher than 55%. We believe this is more beneficial because we can increase the product by 20%.
Not only that, but also will prolong the life for the membrane. Because when you reduce the TDS and also that when the NF permeate, it is mainly to sodium chloride, and it is free from any substance that could affect or could foul the membrane. We have run actually a plant in Omluj using NF membrane ahead of the RO, and we could operate the RO membranes for 10 years. After 10 years, when we open the membrane from the RO, it is brand new. That we could prolong the life of the membrane to 20 years rather than 5 years. Second, will reduce the energy consumption. Third, will increase the production by 10% or higher than that. All these advantages have a value actually by introducing NF. Also, we are reducing the chemical dosing for the acid or for the antiscalant.
Thank you very much. We will proceed to the next question. Nicolas Ivieta Yanis is asking, why not mine brines also for lithium if it is economically feasible and demand and price are rising drastically?
Okay, so I did try and I saw that question and did try to answer it in my presentation. So basically, it would be a good idea to mine if it was economically feasible, because since the demand and price are rising drastically. But the problem is that the amount present is not enough to make it worthwhile. So we would make about 50 tons of lithium carbonate equivalent from our 2 million ton per annum sodium chloride plant. And we compare that to like 7,000 tons per annum for the Caribbean plant in Namibia, 160,000 tons for the largest mine in Western Australia. So even if we took all the saline water conversion corporation brine and processed it, if we could somehow subject it all to this process and find a market for that much sodium chloride to support the process, we would be producing only about 5,000 tons per annum of lithium, which is small compared to the major market. So compared to the other sources, it's just not economically feasible yet.
I would like to make it crystal clear to the audience that the cost is the driver for the harvesting the metals or the ions. We have done the feasibility study and pre-feasibility study for the lithium. We don't find it that it is economic from point of view. That's the main reason. Or otherwise, we can harvest the lithium or the other substance, even cesium or the other. But is it economic? It is not. That's the main driver, is the cost.
Thank you very much. We will proceed to the next question. Hans Allendes Arcos is asking, hi all, and thanks for the webinar. I have the question on how has the global experience been implementing NF-RO separate process in existing plants with only RO systems as brownfield projects?
Yeah, maybe I can answer that question. NF and RO combination is not very common worldwide. And that is mainly because if the only outcome of that process is going to be producing more water, as Dr. Im said, 10 to 15% more water, the upfront investment for the NF system is relatively high compared to the extra production that we get from the reverse osmosis system. So therefore, if you look at the high recovery NF-RO system as your target, it's not economical as compared to just purely seawater RO. However, we are extracting value from the brine, which is why we do have mainly the NF system. In that case, as I mentioned in one of my slides, the value harvested from the brine, the commercial value of the brine, more than pays for the investment of the NF system upfront, or even on the back. It could be used up in both locations. Nowadays, there are technologies allowing us to use NF upstream of the RO or NF downstream of the RO.
Okay. I have a question for you guys. What is your recommendation for Latin America? What will be the next steps if we want to apply this technology at some point? What can we do?
Well, many of the mines do have their own desalination plants. So it may be worthwhile, since they do have experience in mining, to look into using and diversifying their production by harvesting the brine. Also, chlor-alkali industry in many Latin American countries is prominent. So in those cases, certainly that will be of great interest to the countries that do have that industry. Chemical industry uses it as well. So some of the countries in Latin America, oil-producing countries, bromine in this case, will be of great interest as well. And although the world is switching from economy that is based on hydrocarbons to green economy, even when you look at what is happening with the economy here, what is the next step? The sodium chloride is a very key component to producing liquid PVC, which is basically material used for producing any plastic material for any purpose in the world. So that may become still a very attractive source. So sodium chloride becomes very critical, valuable material, even when you go into the post oil-based economy.
Let me add to what Nicola says, that it will be different from location to the location. For example, in the Gulf region, okay, because we are oil producing, we need, for example, the bromine, and also we need the sodium chloride for chloralkali industry. Whereas maybe in America, Latina, they need only, for example, the fertilizer, or maybe they need for the medical. Then they can go to the magnesium production by using the NF multiple stage of NF system in order to increase the concentration of magnesium for fertilizer or for also medical. From place to place will be different according to their needs. We don't have a common things in the world. Each country, they have their specific requirement. That's what we think.
But especially with countries with desalination plants, we do believe that that opens up the opportunity for them to have an extra income, as to say, generated, yes, that can defray the cost of desalinated water. And that is something to think about for every country in Latin America that is developing desalination as a source of water.
And for example, it is not value to produce the salt and to Saudi Arabia because the logistic would be too expensive. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
But in general,
I think we lost them.
We seem to. I guess what I would see as the lowest hanging fruit is actually extraction of bromine. So if you have in your country consumption of bromine for the chemical industry or the oil and gas industry, then historically bromine was extracted commercially directly from seawater as recently as 2003. So it's something that could be implemented directly on the desalination brine coming out without the land and the energy value for the other components of the process. So we've also done a techno-economic study on extracting bromine directly from brine as a standalone product.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically we can say it's case by case, and the local people in Latam, the union companies, need to hire experts who can support them about which material, which minerals make sense for them.
Yes, you're right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully there will be an answer to that if you come to our conference in a month from now, because we are looking at many other substances beyond the ones presented here. And there are ideas from other researchers that have developed other technologies. So it will be a good opportunity to learn of what else is out there that could be suitable.
Okay, perfect.
Camille,
do we have more questions?
We do have more questions.
Perfect.
The next question comes from Jorge Saldia Gutierrez. Hello, I am Jorge Saldia from Chile, and I have a question. What happens with the substances that are not harvested? Isn't it more harmful to the environment to dump this proportion of minerals different from that of seawater or conventional brine?
Okay, this will be answered by both of us, me and Nicola, because we have already discussed it, actually. What is left only, it is about less than 1%.
It's actually less than 0.1%.
Less than 0.1%. We can take it to the landfill, this ferret. Second, we are working also for these traces to be studied and harvest more minerals from it. Okay, we are not ended. We just started now the harvesting of the minerals and ions. We will be able in future to not let any substance to be discharged, whether to the landfill or to the oceans.
But yeah, to answer your question, what is left, about 0.1%, goes to a small evaporation pond, and it's harvested and disposed to a landfill as it occurs. But most of it is actually natural minerals, again, like potassium, sodium. There are no chemicals or chemical substances. Most of our processes that we explained are not chemically driven. they're actually based on membrane separation and membrane concentration. So we don't necessarily add any other substances that could be considered dangerous.
Great, thank you very much. We have a comment from David Golding. Congratulations, Dr. Ahmed, for progressing the project that we worked on the 1990s to explore exciting new opportunities which were not thought of at that time. Good luck for all the future development work.
Okay, thank you, David. He's one of my best friends. We worked earlier together.
So I have another question for you. So where do you see brine mining going in the future? You're going to do a pilot plant right now. So what is the next step for SWCC and DTRI for this new technology or this new application?
Actually, first we have applied one of our patents, as mentioned by Dr. M, to harvest the magnesium ions, and we have started now. Actually, the governor asked us now to implement this project to all SWCC plants in order to supplement the magnesium ion to the drinking waters. This first. Second, now there is an opportunity for worldwide actually to invest in the sodium chloride production. Now we have done RFP for harvesting sodium chloride. Is now open in the market, and we are waiting the vendor to be in. This is the first step. We are planning also to expand after we succeeded in a Jebel plant. We are planning to implement this project in Yambo and Jeddah as well.
But to like in a bigger picture perspective, besides sodium chloride and bromine, the next metals, as the presentation of Dr. Fellows underlined, is magnesium, hugely valuable, growing in high price material. Magnesium metal and magnesium salts are certainly next on the line, as to say, to be attractive and to be developed. And also potassium, as I mentioned, we have developed a technology and experimental level at this point, but already have membranes that allow us to apply the technology by special membranes, using it in existing seawater RO plant that gives us a brine stream that matches high quality potassium fertilizer. So we could produce that at much more competitive price than chemical production of potassium fertilizer. So potassium, calcium, magnesium are the next on the line, and rubidium is the high price, of course.
This is in the next, but now we are working for bromine, sodium chloride, and magnesium ion. This is now we have the feed, which is front-end engineering design, and also RFB for all of them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We have another question from the audience. Hussein Mukrabi is asking, what is the operation strategy shall be followed? Or what operation strategies shall be followed to overcome the biofouling potential for the NF plant?
Actually, we have 20 years experience running NF plants in Omloj, and we could tackle the fouling. Actually, in the beginning, we faced fouling in the NF, but later on, we could overcome the fouling. Actually, we have reduced the flux, and we have do flushing every 3 months using the seawaters, and for that we could overcome any fouling. Now we have running for about 10 years the NF plant with no fouling by using these procedures.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. We will go back to Sir Shani now for one more question. Thank you.
Okay, sure. I think the last thing that I wanted to ask about was, well, we know that the markets for many materials, and their prices can fluctuate a lot. We saw that big spike in Dr. Fellows' presentation for magnesium. So I wanted to ask a bit about, how brine mining can withstand this kind of fluctuation. Like, for example, what if more and more desalination plants start mining from brine? Is there a risk of flooding the market? Or, for example, what if we go full steam ahead in recovering a material that kind of suddenly falls out of favor because something new crops up, a better way of doing things? How able to withstand those kinds of changes are we?
Yeah, if I can answer that, markets, as any other market, are driven by demand and supply. The magnesium supply is very limited at present. And so there is a demand for material that is actually in short supply. So from that perspective, we do believe the market will maintain itself at a relatively high price. As the graph of that was presented earlier shows that it reached to $7,000 a ton. The average price is $3,500 to $4,000 a ton. Our existing technologies, based on our estimate, and it's still an estimate, it's not a fully developed technology, will be production cost of around $800 to $900 a ton. So we are relatively far away from the fluctuations of the market, just the natural availability of it to terrestrial mining is going to draw in the demand, increasing demand by the various sources that were mentioned, industries, especially high-tech industry. It's going to increase. We do know high-tech industry will demand magnesium in the future, and the supply is in a short availability. So
actually, let me add one thing here. As you mentioned, that the price is fluctuating, but you have to know that the brine mining will bring the cost lower than what is available right now. This is what we believe. If there's fluctuation, there will be because of the brine mining.
Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry, did anyone else want to weigh in on that?
As you say, could just add that, I mean, all our techno-economic analysis is not based on the spiky, exciting prices, but on the sort of long-term, the averages that we're seeing. So we're doing things that we think can be competitive on the long-term averages, and you never know when something might not come out of like the bromine market collapsed because it was heavily dependent on its use in leaded petrol. But all the things that we're looking at have multiple uses across many industries, and it's hard to see how in a decade or a generation even they could fall out of use.
Yeah. What about the possibility of flooding the market? Is that a worry? Like overproducing too much?
Well, we do have control over how much we can produce. So with any market, letting the demand drive the market is always a better way than flooding the market with the product. So, and it's a side product of a main production facility that as I pointed out earlier, in the desalination plant I've shown the cost benefit analysis. We can completely defray the cost of production by selling the sodium chloride only. The magnesium is a gravy. Technically, magnesium is based on only production side of things. So realistically, we can control the production of magnesium fairly easily and go up and down without any significant impact. The production cost will be mainly about 1/3 capital, 2/3 O&M. So if
Sorry, I think we may need to move on to some further questions. I'm sorry to cut you off.
Thank you very much for the questions, Nisha. We have one more question from the audience. Mohammed Sami is asking, what is the disadvantage of using SMBS on seawater desalination plant?
Actually, first of all, this question is out of our brine mining. There is advantages and also there is disadvantages using these chemicals. We don't know what's the process he adopted to advise him. We have to know the process in order to give him what's the advice. Is this disadvantage or not?
Yes, sodium metabisulfate, which is, I assume, what is being referred to, is for dechlorination of desalinated water. Our strategy in here with new reverse osmosis plants is we do not chlorinate feed water anymore. It used to be a practice for thermal desalination plants where we had to. But with reverse osmosis desalination plants, we chlorinate once or twice a month for a short period of time. So during that time, we use SMBS. But we're actually switching now to chlorine dioxide, and we do have new technologies that are 100% pure chlorine dioxide with no chloramines or sodium hypochlorite in it. And technically, that SMBS is kind of going away. It's one of the chemicals we believe will be eliminated in the short future. As Dr. Al-Amoudi mentioned, our green initiative is either eliminating chemicals or generating them from brine. And this will be one of the chemicals that will be eliminated, while the chlorine dioxide can be generated from brine, so in high purity. So that's kind of our vision of where SMBS goes. It goes out the door.
And sometimes they use it for membrane preservation.
Yeah, for membrane preservation.
Because that we don't know what's his question exactly. Anyhow, I think Nicola and I, we are give a good explanation for these chemicals.
Thank you very much for your answers. This was our last question. Thank you. Thank you to the audience, and many thanks to our speakers from the Desalination Technology Research Institute, the IDA, IADIR, and the GWI. Juan, I'll leave you the floor to close this webinar.
Thank you very much, Camila. First, again, on behalf of Aladir, I want to say thank you to all the attendees, to DTRI team for giving us all this knowledge that we believe is going to be really helpful for our members and affiliates. I want to say thank you to IDA, IADIR, and GWI to support us in this event. And I want to remind you, please join us for our next webinar about forever chemicals with the EPA, Environmental Protective Agency. And please, also, we will appreciate if you join the IDA, SWCC, DTRI for the International Specialty Conference in the Ocean Brine Mining discussion to be held on March 21 to March 23 in Saudi Arabia. So again, thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you for a great event. It was a great pleasure participating.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thanks. Have a good